All right, welcome, Emerging Apostles. And I have the privilege of introducing these four wonderful people who are going to be our hub leaders. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and make it chaotic, and you may end up speaking over each other, but that's okay. So why don't you go around, just tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do.
I'll jump in. I'm Bornie Burns, and I am the senior pastor at Beach Chapel in the San Diego area, co-pastor with my husband, Micah.
Awesome. My name is Zach, go ahead.
My name is Zach Weinzerl. I live in the Metro Detroit area, and I work at a church in Sterling Heights for a number of years now, and that's where I'm at with my family.
Good. My name is David Toussaint. I'm from Canada. I live in a little city called Rigaud. I'm an associate leader in a church in Hawkesbury, Ontario. And I'm married with Lily and 2 children. Happy to see you guys.
Hello, I'm Ryan Benroth, and I'm in Ohio. And we have an apostolic center that we started within the last couple of years in Lima, Ohio. And we live in a small town a little bit north of that with my family, wife and 4 kids. So that's me.
It's interesting. There's a smaller town than Lima, Ohio, but that's
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Lima is about like 35,000 people, and we're living in a town that's about like 2,200 people. So
it's incredible. So welcome. We're here to sort of like, I've asked these guys just to speak a little bit about their journey, why this is, I'll speak about their journey and what they got out of it and why they think it's important and all of that. And we'll go through everybody. They're each going to take about 50 minutes or so. No, they're not. They're each going to take about 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, just saying, hey, this was the journey. And then we're open to any questions. I'll share a little bit about my perspective on this whole thing, this whole emerging apostles thing, and some of the feedback we've had over the years, which is good to dig into. So why don't we go in the order that you introduced yourself? So Bornie, why don't you go first?
Okay. So yeah, a couple years ago, I met Ian and became aware of this whole actually apostle piece. I think in my own spiritual formation and the history of our church and leadership, we come from a more evangelical background, and I was only just recently exposed to even the prophetic piece. So the apostle piece was kind of the last thing that I was introduced to really through Ian. And I guess I would just say that it piqued my interest enough to want to explore further. I think that for me, it was like, I may be one or I may not be one, but I better know about them as a leader in ministry, especially where we're headed as the church. And the importance of understanding fivefold and even the foundation of the apostle and prophet piece. Like, I just don't think that the church can afford to not know how to move in that direction. So for me, I would say that it probably initially was more a hunger to want to understand in terms of my own leadership in leading a church locally, how to implement a ministry and how to see it function where we're building on that foundation of apostles and prophets. So after I got, knee deep into it, I started to put some pieces together just with my own journey about, over 20 years in ministry and just never feeling like I specialized in anything, but I knew enough to do some damage in every area, it felt like, of ministry. And a real drive of mine that I always had this piece about wanting to see people step into maturity and in terms of their growth in the Lord, and getting them in their lane and getting them moving to fulfill the purposes and plans of God in their life. So I've been doing that for as long as I can remember. And it was really a confirming process to be an emerging apostle context where I started to see that that's actually the way that God wires apostles is, to understand a lot about a lot of things and be able to pull on different pieces and kind of network things together for the benefit of seeing the body of Christ step into maturity and unity. So for me, it just kind of helped explain a lot of things about why I always felt like I was a terrible pastor. Like I knew early on I was not good at counseling. I was, why am I so terrible at some of these more traditional roles inside the church? But yet I know I'm called to lead, and I know that because people want to follow me, like to the swap meet. Just people want to follow what I'm doing, and but not understanding quite why I didn't specialize necessarily in an area. So for me, it was like, oh my gosh. So really understanding my drive to want to push other people up and see them succeed and see them figure out their callings and their purposes and their plans, and then begin to see people come together even in those purposes and plans for the benefit of a bigger picture. That kind of talk just gets me excited, and I want to be around other people that talk about those things. So I always felt like, yes, of course, I'm for local church and I want to see people step into all of that on the local end, but I've always been drawn to a bigger picture than that also. And so it was really getting, myself immersed in an equipping format like Emerging Apostles, where I got all of the Bible for it. I needed Bible, I needed all of that instruction, and then the impartation of just like having that piece called out of me and who I was. And then the net result, I would say, after, so that was like a few years ago now, but I can't even begin to describe the level of authority that I've walked in since having this level of confirmation over the call of God in my life and not shying away from it. So I in particular believe God is calling a lot of women into apostleship in a way that I think generally in the church apostles have been hindered, but definitely I think it's a time to see women take their place in all of that. And the level of authority that I walk in from just getting an alignment with another apostle and understanding my grace and my wiring has allowed me to really just move forward.
Awesome. That's great, Borny. Zach, tell us your story.
All right, so 30 years ago, I was born. Just kidding. I mean, that's true, but all right. It's funny, Borny, when you said that, I totally related. For years, I struggled with the thought of like, what am I missing about, like, because I was a pastor, right? Like that was the title given to me. I'm like, I am not a pastor, but I was like trying so hard to be. So anyway, I had years of frustration of not understanding who I was and not knowing what to do with it. In our paradigm where I'm at, for a long time, all we really had were pastors and, teachers and evangelists, but the apostle and prophet was not really in our frame of mind. And so I had years of that. Then Ian and Rachel show up, and the idea of an actual living, breathing apostle shows up, and suddenly my world turned upside down. The emerging apostle thing that I went to was presented, and my heart just started, I guess you could say, it just started living. And so I went to that, and that was kind of the turning point for me. I always knew there was something more. There was always the sense of there being more like than what I was seeing, and not knowing what to do with it though. But this apostle thing, the emerging apostles, and being on the journey of actually walking this out under someone and the mentoring of it, it just changed everything. So that's kind of the short of my journey. It went from not knowing anything to still not knowing that much, but knowing a lot more than I did. And actually having steps to walk out. But yeah, I think that's it.
Right. Thank you,
All
Zach.
right. Yeah. So I I was in the first emerging apostle school with Borny and David, and kind of a lot of the same kind of outcomes as Borny is described too. It's like, well, I can kind of function in these other areas too, but I'm not like fantastic at any of them in particular, other than I had a ministry called Healing Well Ministry, and was growing in authority for healing and deliverance, inner healing. And so I had a really high value for healthy, healed, set free people. And that, generally speaking, isn't happening in a lot of churches. And also, as you're growing in that, and then also kind of along with discovering victorious eschatology and all this stuff, is like you're growing. In my personal experiences, I was growing and really believing for victory in every aspect of life, the victorious mindset of church. And it's like, well, we're not trying to be critical of anything here, but like the situation I was in, it's like, well, it seems like we're lacking a little bit in that. And why is that? And I started hearing the Lord call me an apostle. And it was kind of a repeat of actually my experience of going into healing ministry too. I heard the Lord tell me that I was going to be in full-time ministry and healing was going to be a big part of it. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about healing. I don't I haven't seen anybody healed before. I got to figure out what this looks like. And so the Lord dropped opportunity for me to grow in that and learn. And really, it was a repeat of that same kind of pattern, I guess. One time isn't really a pattern, but same occurrence where I was hearing the Lord call me an apostle. And then I'm like, well, I don't know anything about that. I'm involved in ministries that, call themselves apostolic, but it still seems like we're missing that, really, because we're not seeing those other than pastor, or we don't necessarily pull on any of those other gifts, maybe the prophetic some, but so it's like I'm missing something. There's something missing from my experience in church, and I got to figure out what it is. Well, along came a Facebook ad from Ian about the School of Emerging Apostles. I'm like, well, I don't know these people, and but I got to know more about this, because if I don't know where I'm going, I don't know how to get there necessarily. So I got into the School of Emerging Apostles there, and it was a lot of the same thing that Borny talked about, whereas that kind of confirmation that, yeah, this is where you are to be. This is what you're called into. And I think that is really an important part of like you aren't going to necessarily have everything figured out after the school, but when you have the confidence of who you are, who Jesus has given, that you are given to the church as a gift to be an apostle, when you're solid in that, then it becomes a whole lot easier to take on the next obstacles, or take the next steps that are going to move towards that, and towards building people up and creating powerful, healthy, healed up people that are just going to be amazing together.
So good. All right, David.
So my turn. So as I said, I'm from Canada. I'm French Canadian, but I can speak English too. And how does that happen? Actually, since maybe 10 years ago, I believe it was just okay. I believe I'm an apostle. I was almost 20 years old, and what I was seeking Jesus doing in the people. I didn't see someone raised from the dead yet, but I'm seeing pressing on for that. But it was just in a sense of, okay, let's do what Jesus is doing. So I'm going to teach and moving around and do this stuff. But in that process, in the church, here we are in the church, like we believe in fivefold ministries, like we believe in evangelists, teachers, pastors, even prophet, that apostles. This was more like some, let's say Bill Johnson, let's say that, or I.D. Baker, or here in Quebec, there's a guy's name is his name is Ian Carroll. He's one of the apostles who wrote a book with Peter Wagner. So they were the big names of who are the apostle, and even in the church history. So when, let's say, conversation, we're talking about, I believe I am an apostle, like I do the stuff, but no, you're not similar to what is the standard. And it was for different, even close person, even for myself, like I was kind of disqualifying myself of that, because there's this hard journey of looking about being and serving the church as an apostle. And there was this journey of looking out, Lord, what is in my heart? What is the motivation of it? Is it something of a, like, there's this, is it the title thing? Do I want a title? Do you want to be this? Or is it what Jesus is calling me out and I need to grow into it? And when I finally met Ian, Rachel, Bernie, Ryan, it was in Chicago at that time for the first cohort of Emerging Apostle. And in the process, one thing I understood, and that was like, I think it's in the church, is that when you know that the Lord is speaking to you, when there's prophetic words, when you have this impression of it, we need to do something with that. We need to grow, we need to train ourselves, we need to look up for what's going on. I went to Voice of the Apostle, and it was in Orlando back in those days. And so I was hungry of looking what's going on. How do you not only know about it, but how do you live it? How do you live from that place and the impact of it in the church that is tangible, that's bringing transformation and even activation of all the believers? Because what I was attracted into the Emerging Apostle, it was actually some friends that we had, but it was one ad on Facebook that was saying that if you're called to be a pastor, you can go to Bible college. If you are an evangelist, go to the School of Real Bunkie in Orlando. If you're a prophet, go to Vacaville, go to the, but for the apostle, like I know, like when you receive something from God for the benefit of others and for the church to grow and just be powerful as it's supposed to be, there was this like, not only hunger, but a fire just to, okay, we need to go forward into that, because I believe that will bring breakthrough into my life. And it did, like totally. It solidified inner convictions. It was not only like, okay, yeah, we believe you are not. I think the first thing was to consolidate what is in my heart, that I needed to just go in that place of a healthy mindset about what does it apply to be an apostle. Is it like how we think, kind of like, I'm not saying that we think like that, but is it like really the one that washed feet? Is it like the greatest authority is there to serve the most? And how does it look like? And this, with the Emerging Apostle, it was just to bring words, a language of how to live it out and how to be immersed in that, and also to be able to carry it to it forward. And like 3-4 years later, the fruits of it, there's a few leaders in the region that are like, they're believing in their callings, but it's not only like apostle, like they can feel it, like they know we need to do something about what's going on. This is the mandate of the church. But there's other believers that start to be acknowledged of, oh, I'm a son, a daughter of God, and I'm called to do something with my life, either to equip the church or either to transform the area. So there is a lot of stuff going on, but that will be my take. All of it is that it's changed our lives and our mind, and just to be to engage in it and to commit to it. That's the word. A commitment to it, and to see how grace is flowing through the journey, because it's a journey. So that's my conclusion.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I mean, be free to jump in at any point. My journey has been one of, being a little bit reluctant internally. The model of the apostle for me was largely the leader of mega ministries, or even the bully. Someone who would come in and bully churches. Certainly being in Chicago, that's very common within the Black community, within the Hispanic community, is that the apostle would be the bully. Sort of type A, male driven, and I might be some of those things, but I'm not all of them. So I was a little bit confused whenever other people started I'll not tell you which ones I am. I'll tell you whether I'm the bully or not the bully. But when people started to recognize it, part of me was afraid, because I don't really know what it means. I use I liken it to the Sasquatch quite a lot, because, does the Sasquatch exist? People think so, and some people don't think so, and some people think they have a grainy old photograph of one actually in the wild, and we're not really sure whether apostles are like that or not. So, and I think the model has been really helpful to get us where we are at the minute. So it's difficult when our job is actually to bring correction, to bring alignment. It's difficult to do that in a way that actually honors the past, because it's very easy to just dishonor everything that's happened. And I've certainly found myself doing that at times, but just being very aware that I want to honor, all those that have come before us and brought us to this place that says, okay, we're ready to have some more conversation around what apostles are. And I like to think I'm part of that conversation, that I'm not the I'm not the last page on the book, but that we're still in a conversation, and I hope that we grow. But my experience of it was just pure hunger. So I'm going to spend $3,000 to go to Reading for a week's school, for hotels, flights, car rental, and I'm going to be there with 500 other people, and I'm going to leave going, that was amazing. Why am I still hungry? Right. And I'm a Bethel guy. These are the guys that I run with. So, but it was this, going to Vacaville to maybe get some of the prophetic activation stuff going. And you're spending $2,000 to go to this thing that leaves me still having to claw my way out of, I'm trying to figure out what the next steps are, really just trying to figure out, okay, so now that I've got this, I still don't know what to do. Like, what am I supposed to do now that I've got, trained in the prophetic or an apostolic ministry or in healthy relationships? What is it I'm supposed to do now? And I think that birthed in me something around the importance, heaven's strategic importance around deployment, in that we have to actually show people, here's a path to do. Now, we don't like that. We don't like that, because we prefer like Anton LaVey, we prefer like all the other occultists out there to forge our own path and not be submitted or not walk with anybody. And, here we are still scrambling around trying to figure out what it is we want to do, while resisting anybody telling us what to do, so we have that kind of thing that goes on in our lives. But I'm prepared to work through that personally, and with you guys. I'm prepared to work through that, to just say, hey, this is too important. The whole notion of being an apostle is too important for the church. Otherwise, let's not bother. Right? Ephesians 4, in the historical churches, Ephesians 4 are called the ascension gifts. So the ascension gifts, at least in some part, whether you agree with Orthodox theology or not, the ascension gifts are through which, the means through which that Jesus governs. And they're not called offices, they're not called governing gifts or anything like that, but and Jesus governs, right, through love, joy, peace, all those kind of things. He's not governing through bully tactics. But if it's that important, if we've lost the notion of Jesus being on the throne, then I think it's that important that the fivefold are raised up. But it's not just the fivefold, because I think we've had models of the fivefold. For me, it is the healthy fivefold. And healthy fivefold doesn't mean that I'm less. Right? Being a healthy fivefold doesn't mean that I'm going to stop being me and pretend to be somebody else. Being healthy means that I'm just not coming from a place of self-sabotage, that I'm not coming from a place of fear, that I'm not coming from a place of rejection, and all of those things. So this is why we do it. This is why we do it, is we, I certainly feel that it's absolutely vital for the church. I think it's interesting that people get angry at me for doing stuff about apostles, because they interpret it wrongly. So just to be clear, I do not make apostles. All right. So I don't make them. I don't have a little factory that we produce apostles in, and they get a certificate at the end of it, and therefore they're apostles, right? I don't do that. The only person that creates apostles is Jesus. And, so you could have a certificate from anywhere you want. I don't care. Show me the money. Right? Like, show me that you're actually walking in the grace of an apostle, that people are following you as an apostle, that people recognize you as an apostle. The apostle Paul himself, that the church in Corinth were his certificate of apostleship. So the real certificate of apostleship is, are people following you as an apostle? And are they doing that without your magnet on the side of your van and, your business card that's telling them that you're everything? And it is this kind of shift, I think, away from seeing an apostle as governing, as opposed to seeing an apostle as serving. We are the chief foot washers of the kingdom, and while it might look at I'm heading off here to have a meeting with 30 leaders, preaching tomorrow morning. That's the public stuff. The private stuff is what we did last night. The private stuff is what we'll do this evening. That's really the important work of apostling, truthfully, is just serving people so that they can be all that they were called to be. So have you guys got anything you want to add, or have I pretty much covered it all because I'm that good?
Yeah, you're that good. Yeah.
Terrible.
Falling. So we're all looking for revival, right? We're all looking for revival, whatever your context for revival is. That some people, their context for revival is that it started in Pentecost and has continued ever since. Some people is that it's an event that happens periodically. Whatever your view on revival is, one of the tactics of the enemy is actually undermine words before he undermines the essence of it. Like, one of the tactics that he does is that he starts to give little sarcastic jokes around the whole word, whether it's revival or whatever. Oh, I'm sick of hearing revival. Well, show me the money. Show me what it is you're doing. Show me the blind seeing, the lame walking. Show me those things before we start saying we're getting sick of a word. Pedantry is still alive and well within the church, but here's the thing: we're going after an increase of his government and of peace on earth, right? That's what we're going for. We will not have an increase of his government and peace if we keep rejecting the fivefold. And if you're called to do it, then you're, how can I say this as lovingly as pastoral as I can, the failure for people to embrace the title and the call and the grace of apostle is one of the most selfish things that you can do. Because this isn't actually all about you. This is about people that need your grace to be active on the earth at this time. Right? We need your grace to be active. And it is probably time for most of us to get over ourselves and to put ourselves out of the way and actually walk in what it is we're supposed to be walking in. And stop giving the trolls that are out there to say, well, who do you think you are? All those people, all the naysayers, right? In the words of Tolkien or Gandalf, I will not bandy words with a witless worm, right? I'm not going to give the naysayers the space to change the call of God in my life, because it is not about me. It is about the people that are praying that something changes. So that's my call to you. If you're called to be an apostle, join us, walk with us, like be part of this, be part of what I believe God is doing, be part of it and actually embrace the suck, because some of it sucks. Some of it actually is like awkward. Some of it, you do get some pushback, you do get all, just embrace it, because this is actually the suffering of obedience. This is part of this learning the suffering of obedience, of being a son or a daughter. All right, so preach over. I can't promise that. I can't promise that it's over, but does anybody any questions? Can I throw it out to you guys to see if anybody has any questions? Again, hit reactions, press the little button for raise your hand and we'll bring you on. That's how I do questions. I count down from 5 to 0, and if there's no questions, we're done. I'm not going to do the awkward silence for 5 minutes. So anybody, any questions, raise your hand.
Ian, can I say something?
You can indeed, Jim. Let me find you so I can bring you on.
Okay. As far as this school, you know, it's a school, but it's more being in relationship with people that are on this same journey. And I personally give my highest endorsement to Ian and Borny and Ryan and David and everybody that's doing this. It will absolutely change your life. It will increase your confidence level. We've hosted a few different schools, and we've seen different results in varying fashions, and just seen people more than anything else walk in the confidence of your realized God-given identity. And some of the things like you know, working with groups of churches, you know, I work with groups of churches in Cuba. I'm also working with the church board locally here in San Diego to resolve a major issue that they have. I'm also working with the Catholic Church here in San Diego. And there's things that some of it you can see coming, some of it you don't see coming. We are prophetic, you know, but some of it you see coming, some of it you don't. And the piece that like this overwhelming desire to see the church come into destiny. And I think the fact that the church in Western culture has had such a big issue with apostles being raised up, I think even though revival has already started, which is leading towards real transformation and reformation, that I think the piece that is actually missing to cause full scale, like the full manifestation of revival from taking place, is that apostles need to be raised up in the church. So if you're contemplating this and you're looking for a sign from God, I am your sign. I am a living sign from God that's saying you should be doing this, because this will absolutely change your life. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yes. You know what, Jim, actually, it is a confirmation. It's been a couple of years since I wanted to join this class. And I spoke with Jim one time that he were at Firewheel, and he said, well, come and talk to Ian. And I said, maybe it's not the time yet. And now that I see also Ryan there, I go, hmm. And then when I heard Bern talk about how women are stepping up now, and I go, yes, I think it's the time. And then I get your emails all the time, and I think about I should unsubscribe from Ian's. But yes, I'll be talking to you soon.
Awesome. Fun. Yeah, I mean, my thing is, even if you're not an apostle, which I'm not saying any of you are not apostles, but this is, I don't think it's hubris. I don't think it's arrogance. I think it's evidence. And I just think that if you do this school, if you're around for the next 9 months, your life will change. It's that simple. If you're around these guys for the next 9 months, your life will change. Like the joys of being around an apostle is that you can't not be changed. And sometimes it feels like you'd rather not be changed, to be quite honest. Like sometimes it sort of rocks your world enough to go, oh my goodness, please stop. Like, please stop the shaking, please stop the rebuilding, the demolishing, please stop that. Because it was way easier before you came into my life. But unfortunately or fortunately, that doesn't happen. That we continue to grow from glory to glory with increasing glory. So thank you. Anybody else, any questions? Put your hand up.
Rhonda.
All right.
It was yeah, you saw, did you saw her?
Yes. I just want to thank you, and I want to thank Ryan, because I feel so humbled and broken. I have such great hunger and desire. I've been to Reinhard Bonnke's School of Evangelism, and as a female, I've just been pursuing Jesus. And you know, Ryan is one of my leaders in Global Awakening, and I'm just so humbled and honored to be among you. And I'm asking this question because I don't want you to stop, because I want to be in the presence of God. And I'm just so grateful because I feel I'm being apprehended by Jesus. And as a female, I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know where it's going. So this is just stepping out in faith, and I know it's right. And I, like the other sister said, I sense the confirmation of the Lord. I know I'm being apprehended. And I appreciate your words that you said that if you deny this, if you deny this calling, it's selfish and it's time to get over yourself. And I say, yes, I agree with that. And so I'm basically commenting because I don't want you to stop, and I just want to say thank you. And I'm just, every word that's been spoken has just landed on my heart with an explosion, and I'm just so grateful. And I have no words to describe how I feel to be here today, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Al Jones. Wherever
Yes,
you are.
sir.
I see that hand. Apostle Al Jones.
Am I
You're
unmuted?
live. Yeah,
Okay.
you're all good.
Hey, asking the hubsters, the aspect of wanting more, the aspect of aligning yourself with the grace that's on you and that kind of thing. Have you seen how would you describe it in terms of pioneering? Do you feel like that is a label or an aspect of this journey in apostolic grace, or the grace of an apostle, that pioneering is a big aspect of it?
I would say yes, and definitely in my case. I don't know what everybody else's experiences is, but I imagine that there is definitely varying aspects of that pioneering, but absolutely, especially when, like, I coming into this, I wasn't a pastor of a church. I didn't want to be a pastor of a church, probably because I wasn't a pastor, actually, and it's like, I didn't want anything to do with that, because what I was seeing wasn't what I felt like needed to be pioneered, or like there was that missing part that's like, well, if that's what it is, I don't really want church leadership, but, and then, I mean, my journey is different than everybody else's to some degree. And that it's like, well, you find out that, well, this place maybe wasn't as apostolic as they claim to be, or this group of people doesn't necessarily want that influence in their life. And it's like, okay, well, what do you want now? Lord, where do we go from here? And for me, it was trying to make those changes as gracefully as possible and lovingly as possible, and ended up me establishing an apostolic center that didn't exist, a couple years ago. So there's definitely a pioneering aspect there, where I think we're building something that isn't there, it isn't in our area. And it may not be that everybody recognizes the value of it right away. And so there is that kind of that plowing through that is necessary. And that's part of pioneering. Like, you got to clear some ground and cultivate it and plant and grow, and you're not going to harvest the first day you establish something necessarily. So pioneering is definitely a part of it for me.
For myself, since something similar of Ryan, I think that when we start something that doesn't exist, and specific to our regions, because we have different, let's say, like the regions, the nature of the regions where we are is different from where they are. For example, for myself, just the fact of proclaiming or just showing up to say, hey, I'm here because I want to help to raise apostles in our region. In Canada, there is this type of the English side, English Canadian, and the French Canadian, and there's a conflict. We don't speak a lot about it, but there's a conflict between the English and the French Canadian, and for a long time. But in the French world, there is this kind of delay versus, let's say, what's going on in the United States, all about the supernatural. Like every believers can just prophesy. This is not only the person who have the micro, that there is something that the mindset of all believers can move into it, and they can be a part of what God is doing in the building. This, in our culture, in the French side, we are touching that. And the fact of introducing this maybe is not new concept for the United States, but in our region, this is something that people start to grasp and to believe and to go into it. And the fact of establishing what I have is not necessarily like all public, but this is a space where people come and they can just start to learn about who God created them to be, and recognize the gift that of in the callings. And just how can we set a place for you to just try and experiment, and let's have this catalyst place. And this thing don't exist in our region. And I think also what we, for myself, what we created, I think it's not only for, let's say, for us. I think it's for what God is doing or want to do in our region, so that the other person that are not even aware of it, they are touched by it. And that is something that we can observe also when we are pioneer something or building something up. That's really
I'm pretty sure we'd all say that pioneering is a huge part of it. Starting off, I kind of wish pioneering wasn't part of it, because pioneering's tough. And it's just, you're constantly trying to convince people that you're right, or that this is, you're trying to convince people who see no need of a need. Meanwhile, there's people that have that know that this is a burning need. And, so so my kind of main things are like raising up apostles, the whole mystical stuff, really popular. These are really, really popular, non-pioneering things. And recently we launched this prayer thing, this sort of like, personal intercessor thing. And I'm like, oh, this won't be pioneering because everybody believes in prayer. Well, apparently they don't. Apparently nobody believes in prayer out there. Apparently, like we're actually gesturing at it, but we're really afraid to get specific when we're asking God for things. We're really afraid because the feedback we're getting on this is very pioneering. I'm like, oh my goodness. So maybe there's just something in the apostles' makeup that says, okay, give me that mountain, right? Maybe there's that little, you're of a different spirit, the same way Caleb is, that it's just, okay, this is going to be tough. Awesome. Let's do it with one arm tied behind our back, come on, fight. It's just, fundamentally apostles are built for a fight. Now, I don't mean bullying. I'm not talking about bullying, but apostles are the grace that are built for war. And sometimes when we get bored, we make up wars. And sometimes when we're just not actually attentive to the things that God has called us to do, we'll just get into fights for no reason whatsoever. So yeah, I think pioneering is 100% part of what it is we're doing. And it's amazing. So thanks, Al. Thanks for the question. Anybody else?
Hey, I wanted to chime in and just say that in the more traditional denomination that we are part of, I was very involved in the ordination track for up and coming ministers. And for me, leading in that capacity in a bigger context, I would say that it was just as much of a success for the kingdom for people to come through that process and figure out who they weren't, as people that figured out who they were. And I think if you need to do a process of elimination journey, I've signed up for, like, I think it was Rhonda that just said, went to a school of evangelism. I did that. And I think that it's okay to come through a process where you've put your all in it to figure out by process of elimination what your lane is also. And I just want to encourage folks that I used to tell people that coming through ordination track all the time, like, you can't lose here. You can't fail, because even if you come through a process just to figure out that this is not your call, it's still a success in the kingdom of God, because it's helping you to get further connected down the road of understanding what your call is. And I would say the same thing about emerging apostles. So anybody that sees a value in establishing the apostle, prophet piece and the fivefold in general, I think it would be worth it to understand what the church's goal is in navigating that direction. I used to sit around and complain to the Lord about why the church was so weak and emaciated. Honestly, I look around and I'm like, why aren't we seeing the stuff in the Bible? Like what's holding the church back? And it was this process of him unveiling for me, like, it's the apostle prophet piece that we've lost. And it's kind of akin to like probably where the emergence of the prophets was, from my understanding of history, like in the last 20 years, was that the church needed to get over this fear of the prophets. Sure, they needed to get healthy. Sure, they needed to emerge and they needed to get in alignment and all of those things, but we couldn't afford to be afraid of the prophets. Right. And that took us a span of pioneering to see them brought back into the church, empowered in a healthy way, in alignment, all of those things. But now here we are with the apostle piece, kind of at the beginning of what it was like for the prophet piece. And so very much pioneering. Sure, we need to be healthy and all of that, but like prophets have metrons, if it's like that for apostles, and they can be any size of a metron, there's probably way more apostles floating around than we think. And the sooner we get them to identify, they can become equipped, they can get healthy, and they can get empowered. And then we can start to see regions transformed. Like, we need to see regions transformed. I look around and I'm like, why aren't we seeing a region transformed? Well, because we need to empower apostles.
Preach. Well,
Good.
nice to see your face. Nice to meet you. You're muted, so yeah, you're gonna need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I'm on Zoom like 50 hours a week. I know how to unmute. Gosh, you know, I kind of have two questions as I think of as I'm hearing what people are saying and just giving you a little back brief. It sounds like the 9-month school, and you know, you can adjust what I think I'm hearing is really about you know, identity and formation and understanding, you know, the grace and the call upon you know, the individual, and what measure. And so I hear that very strongly, and so I guess my question is, and to what measure does this team work beyond identity and for the initial formation to actually build, and like, are you guys helping one another build your apostolic centers? Is there a little how-to activity, or are we laying down new railroad tracks? So what's the balance? It feels like there could be another school just focused on building, but you know what I'm saying? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So is that a good question? Do you understand my question?
I think it's a great question, because, you know, the resistance I think we have felt largely, the resistance that I felt largely over the last 10 years personally, and then even running, you know, 4 iterations of this, has been that the central piece is identity. The central piece is, I don't feel worthy. I have misconceptions about what this is, and it's getting over all of that. However, from month 2, you'll be given stuff to do to start building. So so for me, deployment is the big thing, right? I want, you know, so if I can help David any way that I can help David, or Borny, or Ryan, or Zach, or any of the, or Al Jones, or Jim Hydrick, or any of the other people that I know that are apostles, then I want to build with. Please let me know. I want to help you build, right? I'm not that interested in helping people that are random and have not connected with me. So, and I would say it's going to be the same here. So say, Will, you're part of Ryan's group. Like, part of Ryan's job will be to help you build, like, not just help you go there. This is not a pastor's school. There are identity elements in it, but this is not a, hey, let's make sure we're going to not spend every week saying, is your heart healthy? I was recently asked to lead a small group for the folks that I run with, the small group of leaders for the folks that I run with. And I'm like, so let you know, a revival group. And I said to them, so if you want this, please don't pick me. Please don't even ask me any further. If you want someone to check in and make sure everybody's heart's okay, don't pick me to do that. I'm the world's worst. I'll die within 2 months. But if it is helping them build, if it's getting alongside people to say, hey, how can we, you know, how can we get the hell out of this region? How can we, you know, stir up enough hunger for the Holy Spirit? Then I'm in. So our job is to help you build from month.
That's good.
From month.
Yeah, that's good, because you know, I think there's some folks that just want to run their race, and there are horses that want to exercise, and it's like, you know, we got to start doing this stuff. And
we do.
I think underutilization, and we're just not exercised. And getting over all the internal hurdles, all the negative scripts and self-talk, and you know, yes, you know, we need that nurture for sure. But anyway, so it sounds like there's an element of, you know, if someone has a lane to run in, you guys will come alongside and be the cheerleaders. You know, if they're running a marathon or a sprint or whatever it is, a quarter mile, you're going to be there to help figure out the missing pieces, and perhaps pray through things, address blind spots, and encourage and strengthen, pour oil in, minister to people prophetically. And it's, is that a good description of what might happen in this 9 months? I'm using some of my language.
Sure. So you guys, do any of you guys want to answer that as far as what your experience has been?
Oh, I think there's something that happens when you just get around like-minded folks in a region. I mean, we went all the way to Chicago and we still had that effect with these connections that I made, with people all over the country that I'm still building with. So yes, I think that's the goal of the hub, piece. And then just being around other like-minded people in the hub is going to produce the practical application that you're talking about.
And then the other question, I'm sorry, is in some states are smaller than others. In some regions, I'm from Connecticut. It's a small state. Leadership is in a small space, and there's a lot of stuff that's going on. And do you guys help folks navigate the environment? And how to, I find that some of the constraints and some of the challenges are, the follow leadership ground, and some of it's good and some of it's not. But as you partner to come alongside to help navigate some of those complexities of leadership and other leaders and working with them, or are we just focused on building our thing? Is it, I'm just curious.
Yeah, so fundamentally, I am convinced that one of the main reasons that people don't walk in their fullness is they've never learned how to grow in favor with men, because we don't see it as necessary. So, excuse me, that certainly is a huge component. How do you build trust? How is it you're going to build trust with people? Like the notion of being right. Here we are in 9/11, and social media is filled with conspiracy theories. At the same time, it's filled with memories of 20 years ago. At the same time, it's filled with grief and all of these kind of things. And we don't know what to believe. We just don't know what to believe anymore. And people are just randomly shouting because it is. John Stott used to say that one of the things that we had together is, one of the things that causes us power, gives us power, is that we have the truth. Unfortunately, that truth, we don't even know what truth is anymore. And part of the reason is that we've destroyed trust. So one of the challenges regionally can be, so even for Canadians and certainly Europeans, one of the challenges that I would see consistently is the inability to honor the man or woman of God, that we don't like to do that. And when that doesn't happen, then you've actually got a very low ceiling. You'll get a very low ceiling. So there are places that are more progressive, if I use that, that are more enlightened, and the inability to just recognize that there is a man or woman of God that he's using in this moment, in this space, in this time, I think is the most detrimental thing to the church, honestly. So, and to regions and to all of that. So at the minute there's any kind of contempt even towards the man or woman of God, because there's a misunderstanding of a bunch of this. So yes, it's giving understanding, like that. It's giving understanding. It's trying to recognize what's actually going on in your metron. Are you really called to this? Are you called to Connecticut, or are you called to something else?
Something else. Yeah. That's good.
I don't want us to bang our heads against brick walls trying to change things that are never going to let us change.
Yeah. Thank you.
Danny Silk says you can't solve a problem for someone that they don't have. And if someone doesn't have a problem, we're not there to solve the problem. So. as frustrating as that can be for us at times, like, it's, you know, because we know we can see
Yeah.
the problem. That's the problem, is we can see the problem, but because truth has become very subjective and people don't actually honor the grace that's on someone's life, I know that where I'm honored, they will excel.
Mhm.
Yes.
And
You're in your element.
I don't make that up. Like, I'm not saying, hey, therefore I'm going to be honored, right? That's where actually the part of the suffering comes from, is like understanding that I have to learn to walk in that. But I know where there's honor, that the people that do it excel. It's like the Apostle Paul saying, you know, I know what it's like to have plenty and to have nothing, but I'm actually jealous that this is credited to your account. That I understand that when you're doing this for me, and now my God will supply all your needs. You know, so we've lost that. I think in Christianity, and largely in Christianity, we've lost that notion that when I honor the man of God, it's actually for my benefit, not for his or the woman of God. So yeah, we're honestly, this isn't like take your money and run. You know, we're not just going to take your money and say, okay, well, it didn't work out for you. So on my heart is actually to raise up 1,000 apostles in the United States and North America. Let me put North America just for Monsieur Toussaint.
Get those Canadians in there.
So, so I want to raise up 1,000 apostles. That's been my goal since day one, and I want them to be raising up people, but I want to like raise up 1,000 apostles in North America. So that means, do you know there's no collective term, there's no collective noun for apostles, right? You have a company of prophets, but there's no collective noun for apostles. So I invented it. And I'm calling it a fleet of apostles, because I think it sort of goes to the original thing. And it also was handy doing a school of emerging apostles, because the fleet were at sea. Anyway, that's...
What do you call a team of oxen? You know, it's like, I don't know what you call them.
Probably a team.
It's Brian Simmons calls us under rowers, the chief under rowers of the ship, right? So I don't know what a chief, I don't know what a group of under rowers are. A crew, it would be a crew.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else, any questions? Thanks, Will. Anybody else, anything before we wrap up? All right. Oh, Randall, you just got in at the very end. My goodness.
Yeah, I'm stepping in because I appreciate what Rhonda did. See, this group of people, this group of apostles coming together and just talking, just listening is building. And where else can you be or go to have a group of people like this to just listen, talk, build, and encourage and move forward? You know, and I appreciate what Borny had said. You know, like-minded people. I mean, this is fantastic, and I truly believe that this is going to be an amazing thing, and I truly believe that you're going to get your 1,000 apostles that you're helping. So I love this. I love this. I took Ian's Emerging Apostles in 2019, and yeah, it was absolutely amazing, and helped me in my courage and my walk and what I knew in myself. But absolutely amazing, and I love this.
Thanks, Ronald. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you. Look, Zach's giving you a big heart. All right, anybody want to close with? Anything you want to just say? If not, that's fine. You all good? All righty. Well, listen, guys, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us. You're free to connect with any of us. Look us all up on Facebook, on social media, and you're free to connect with any of us whatever way you can. If I can answer any questions, then please email borny@beachchapel.org, and she'll answer them. Please just email me, contact me on social media, whatever works for you. So, but bless you guys. Register. How the actual logistics of it works, like the actual logistics of how the hubs and all that are going to operate will depend on how many people we have registered. So if we have 20 registered, it will look different than if we have 100 registered. So, and certainly if we had 100 registered, we'd have to add on a couple more hubs. So, but that'd be awesome. So, all right, bless you guys. And I'm going to record this. Well, it has been recorded, and I'll send out to everybody who registered. But have a tremendous weekend. And thank you guys. Thanks for being part of it. Thanks, Borny. Thanks, Zach, David, Ryan. Appreciate you guys.
You're
Love you.
welcome.
And yeah, stay in touch, people.